This is your News Source Evening Bulletin for today, Tuesday, the 15th day of March in the year 2022. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting, and here's what we're tracking tonight. The government has removed most of the COVID-19 regulations, essentially fully opening up the country. Restrictions on hosting and attending social activities have been thrown out completely. Under the new COVID-19 health regulations, which were issued last evening, mask wearing is no longer mandatory, but is still being encouraged. Additionally, persons will no longer need to present proof of vaccination when entering public buildings. But those public buildings are being encouraged to keep sanitization and hand washing stations in place for visitors. Businesses are also being encouraged to keep those stations in place and encourage their employees and visitors to wear masks. Businesses are also being encouraged to have systems in place to safeguard the employees against COVID-19. The new regulations have also dumped the restrictions on public gatherings, and religious houses will now be allowed to host services and events at full capacity. Those religious houses are also being encouraged to keep their sanitization systems in place and to have their members and visitors wear face masks. For persons traveling to Guyana, the COVID-19 protocols remain in place at the airports and at other ports of entry. Arriving passengers will still have to provide evidence of a negative COVID-19 PCR or antigen test, along with proof of full vaccination. Minister of Legal Affairs and Attorney General Anil Nandlal commented on the changes to the regulations.
What the guidelines now regulate, they continue to encourage persons to wear face masks. They continue to encourage persons to take their vaccines. They continue to encourage persons to take their booster shots. They continue to encourage persons who are employers or operators of businesses, as the case may be, and religious leaders to ensure that their hand washing stations or hand sanitizing equipment placed at conspicuous places within the business or the place of worship, as the case may be. As I said earlier, they continue to encourage the wearing of face masks, but the wearing of face masks is no longer mandatory. Significantly, all protocols currently in place in relation to international travels will continue to be in place, so you will still be required to obtain your PCR testing, and whatever the current regulations require, that will remain in place. The requirement for vaccination will continue, and you will continuously be required to produce proof of vaccination whenever that is required. The places certified by the Ministry of Health to conduct the tests and the health licensing facilities, etc., will continue to be the authorized places for the conduct of those tests.
Meanwhile, some members of the public said despite the regulations being eased, they will continue to follow most of those with regard to face mask and sanitizing.
Yeah, some people say they're working for a couple months, even if can't out COVID going on 2 years. Some people say well, they've been going to work because they're scared. Some people fear with their life. Fear that things happen, fear that things going on. Not some people, children ain't going to school up to now, although the school going on is still open. Some people still at home. So it's very good that the government give the restriction that the place could open out and people could be free and be move around as they like and do things pertaining to them studies or them work, study or their school, them living. So give thanks still for the freedom again.
Okay, that's good. That is so good. Because to me, it's good because at least more people can be able to come out. You're being locked up all the time, and so it's good that
Well, for me, it's okay. It's okay, but for 3 years, I was with mask and I feel uncomfortable. Well, as now, the government put back things into place normal. Well, I'm glad for that, but I will still use the precaution like avoid gathering too much, things like that.
The removal of the majority of the restrictions comes as the country continues to see a decline in new cases of COVID-19 and with the number of active cases falling rapidly. More news coming up in just a moment.
How fast is fiber? Think fast. GTT Fiber has 3 packages with download speeds of 50, 100, and 150 megabits per second. That's fast enough to stream movies and music, to chat with Gran and Fran, to study, and more. What would you do? Upgrade to GTT Fiber today and don't get left behind tomorrow. Live your fantasy at Fantasy Gaming Lounge. Win big daily. Millions in cash prizes every week. Now located at Giftland Mall, Fantasy Gaming Lounge, the best bet in town.
Social media is a great way to stay connected, and let's face it, who doesn't like likes? Whether you're showing off that great outfit or celebrating a work promotion, your first priority should be staying safe online. So shop only on secure websites, those with URLs that begin with HTTPS. Never overshare, including your location with strangers online. Configure your Facebook privacy settings to only share your photos and other personal information with family and close friends. You can be social, but it's important to be safe online.
Combo pack up, we feeling best. Sunshine stacks above the rest. There is no contest, is the best mix, so we feeling best. Best value to how you feeling. Ole cheesy, too much ripples and more combo pack of flavors galore, yeah. Combo pack up, we feeling best. Sunshine stacks above the rest. There is no contest, is the best mix, so we feeling best.
Sunshine Snacks Combo Pack, now with a new look and new mix. Grab your pack today.
Best mix, so we feeling best.
We've got exciting news! All 12-ounce yellow cab Buster are now only $100. Buster, live in
Come
full
get
color.
your Buster, Buster $100. Come get your Buster, Buster $100.
Welcome back. 2 men lost their lives in an early morning accident along the Burlam turn in Quarantine Berbice this morning. The accident involved a motor car and a truck. The 2 dead persons were identified as 20-year-old Lachman Sukhan, who was the driver of the car, and his passenger, 26-year-old Yijastir Puran. A police report said the accident occurred at around 3:15 this morning. The car, being driven by Lachman Sukhan, was reportedly being driven at a fast rate when Sukhan lost control as he negotiated a turn along the roadway. The car reportedly spun out of control and ended up in the path of the truck, which was being driven in the opposite direction. The collision resulted in the driver and the passenger of the car being pinned inside the vehicle with multiple injuries. They were eventually removed from the wreckage and taken to the hospital, where they were both pronounced dead on arrival. The driver of the truck was taken into custody for questioning. The 47-year-old man told investigators that he was not speeding at the time and the car suddenly ended up in his lane after it spun out of control. A full investigation is being conducted tonight. Let's tell you now that the Caribbean Court of Justice today struck down the Guyana Court of Appeal's decision to uphold the Director of Public Prosecution's direction last year to have former murder accused Marcus Bisram face a High Court trial. The CCJ found the section of the laws of Guyana which allows the DPP to instruct a magistrate to commit an accused to face a High Court trial to be unlawful. Bisram was originally charged in 2019 for the 2016 murder of Berbice carpenter Fayaz Narindat. In 2020, the Magistrates Court found that a strong enough case had not been made out against him and dismissed the matter. But the Director of Public Prosecution stepped in and instructed the magistrate to reinstitute the charges against Bisram, resulting in Bisram being rearrested. The magistrate was also instructed by the DPP to commit the matter over to the High Court for a jury trial. Mr. Bisram's lawyers quickly challenged the DPP's instructions, and in 2020 he was again freed of the charge after Justice Simone Morris Ramlal ruled that the DPP's instructions were unlawful. That ruling saw the DPP moving to the Court of Appeal and winning the appeal, which resulted in the way being cleared for the charge to be filed again. Bisram's attorneys took the case all the way to the Caribbean Court of Justice, and in its ruling today, the CCJ agreed with Bisram's attorneys that the DPP's decision to instruct the magistrate to commit the case to the High Court was indeed unlawful. CCJ President Justice Adrian Saunders, in handing down the decision, said the DPP erred in her direction to the magistrate. He said the direction stood in the way of fairness in the trial. Justice Saunders pointed out that the Director of Public Prosecutions failed to follow sections of the law that speak to the independence of the courts. He questioned how an authority that is not the Court of Appeal and is not part of the core judiciary can actually direct a court as to how it must dispose of a matter before the court.
In relation to Section 72, the court noted that simply striking down Section 72 would leave a substantial gap in the criminal procedure without any certainty as to when that gap will be closed. Therefore, until the National Assembly addresses this matter, Section 72 should be modified to provide that a DPP who is for good reason dissatisfied with the decision of a magistrate to discharge an accused person may place before a judge of the Supreme Court the depositions and other materials that were before the magistrate on an ex parte application for the discharged accused to be arrested and committed if the judge is of the view that the material justified such a course of action. In all the circumstances, the court allowed the appeal and restored the decision to Mr. Bisram.
The court ruled that Bisram should not be charged again on the same evidence, but it was noted that he could be arrested and charged with fresh evidence. Bisram was represented by a battery of lawyers, including Dexter Todd, Sanjeev Tatadin, and Darshan Ramdani.
Guyana again has seen, I believe, the work of the CCJ, our apex court. They have blazed the trail again today and have demonstrated that the rule of law is alive and strong in Guyana. It takes time to get to these courts. And I do share Mr. Bisram's own agony of having to go through this process for so many years. But we are at the end of it. The court has ruled and justice is served.
Mr. Bisram is free finally. Justice has been served. As the saying goes, you know, every long road has an end. This is the end, hopefully. It has taken some time. It has taken longer than it should ideally take, but you can't doubt that the process works. You can't doubt that the value of the Caribbean Court of Justice to Guyana. We all knew about the events of previous years, but again, the Caribbean Court of Justice has stood firm on the side of justice, and Mr. Bisram's innocence, which he has proclaimed from the very first day, he's been vindicated.
Mr. Bisram welcomed the decision of the court and said it will now allow him to return to his normal life.
Well, I feel great. Justice has been served. I'm very happy that I could, my name is cleared and I could go back to my normal life.
The carpenter, Fayaz Narain, was found dead on the number 70 village public road on the Quarantine Coast in October 2016. The case was first treated as a hit-and-run accident, but a post-mortem examination and other evidence pointed to the man being murdered and his body dumped on the roadway. A number of persons were charged with the murder, and Bizram landed on the police force's radar as reports were received of his alleged involvement. He was extradited from the U.S. to face a murder charge. The other persons held in the matter remain before the courts. Former opposition leader Joe Harmon is no longer a member of parliament. His resignation as a member of parliament took effect today. Just over a week ago, Mr. Harmon wrote to the Speaker of the National Assembly informing him of his intention to resign. On Monday, Mr. Harmon dispatched his official letter of resignation, which indicated that the resignation takes effect from today. Harmon was elected leader of the opposition in 2020, just after the APNU-AFC coalition found itself in the opposition benches in the Assembly, following the 2020 elections, which saw the People's Progressive Party being returned to office. Mr. Harmon's stint as opposition leader lasted for 17 months. He was forced to resign as opposition leader following a humiliating defeat in his quest to become the leader of the People's National Congress Reform, which is the largest party in the APNU-AFC coalition. At first, Harmon wanted to hold on to the position of opposition leader, but he walked away from that position as the PNC's executive made it very clear that the new leader of the party, Aubrey Norton, should be the one taking over the position after he becomes a member of parliament. Political pundits saw Harmon's defeat in the race for the PNC leadership as a referendum on his leadership of the coalition in the National Assembly and the loss of confidence in him among the party's membership. With Harmon's resignation now taking effect, the Speaker will write to the representative of the coalition's list, former President David Granger, requesting that he, Granger, extracts a name from the coalition's list to replace Mr. Harmon. Mr. Granger will have to write the Elections Commission to extract one of the party's candidates from its list of candidates to be made the next member of Parliament. A similar process will follow when the resignation of opposition MP Nicolette Henry takes effect at the end of this month. PNC leader Aubrey Norton will take up one of the seats being made available, while the Central Executive Committee of the PNC is to meet next week to decide on who takes up the other seat. The National Assembly is not expected to meet again until sometime in April. When it does, once the process is completed, the two new members of Parliament for the opposition will be sworn in. Days after the Guyana police force bragged about a decrease in criminal activity across the country, the U.S. Embassy here in Georgetown has issued a security alert for the capital city of Georgetown, with a specific focus on the Stabroek and border markets. In the alert, which was issued on Monday, the embassy indicated that the city of Georgetown is rated critical for crime, with incidents of robberies, sexual assault, vehicle accidents, and homicides occurring, particularly in high-risk areas after dark. In the alert, the embassy also warned U.S. mission personnel against independently visiting the Stabroek market. Additionally, mission personnel have been advised to use extreme caution when visiting the border market during the day, and they should not independently visit that market at night. The embassy is also advising its staffers and U.S. citizens to avoid high-risk areas, minimize movements after dark, keep a low profile, and be aware of their surroundings. Visitors and embassy staffers are also being encouraged to provide their colleagues and family with their daily plans and to avoid leaving valuables in their vehicles. The embassy said citizens should also avoid physically resisting a robbery and noted that they should call 911 for help after a robbery or attempted robbery. The Stabroek market area has been a favorite spot for bag snatchers and robbers for years. A 24-hour police outpost in the area has done very little to deter thieves and other criminals. Well, the Old Boys Tongue man who was busted at the Eugene F. Correa Airport at Ogle with a suitcase full of imported marijuana, also known as puppy weed, was sentenced to 4 years in jail today after pleading guilty to the drug trafficking charge. 47-year-old Elvis Tuesday appeared before Magistrate Rachel Liverpool at the Sparendam Magistrates Court and pleaded guilty during his first court appearance this morning. He was arrested on Saturday as he prepared to board a flight to Barbados with more than 40 pounds of marijuana in his suitcase. The poppy weed was contained in 23 parcels in the suitcase. Kanu said testing done on the illegal drug confirmed that it was poppy weed, which may have been smuggled into Guyana and was now being moved again. The suitcase of poppy weed had a street value of 7 million Guyana dollars.
This is Mocha.
Live your fantasy at Fantasy Gaming Lounge. Win big daily. Millions in cash prizes every week. Now located at Giftland Mall, Fantasy Gaming Lounge, the best bet in town.
We've got exciting news! All 12-ounce yellow cab Buster are now only $100. Buster, live in
Come
full
get
color.
your Buster, Buster $100. Come get your Buster, Buster $100.
People may forget the present you bought for them, but they'll never forget your scent. Find your signature fragrance at Elite Fragrances and Trade-In, located at 123 Region Road Border between Ornock Street and Shiv Chandapal Drive. Call 619-5151 or 227-1255. Get a designer fragrance for yourself or loved one that they will never forget.
Fuel it up and drive, Super 95. Tune up, fuel it up and drive, Super 95. Tune up. Protect your fuel system, boy. High mileage and performance, boy.
Guy Oil's Super 95 gasoline gives you more reasons to drive and is available at 56 service stations nationwide. For affordable price, high performance, and high mileage, choose Guy Oil's Super 95 gasoline.
Fuel it up and drive.
Across the region tonight, Peru's Congress yesterday approved the start of impeachment proceedings against President Pedro Castillo over allegations of corruption after failing to gather enough votes in a previous attempt back in December. The opposition-led Congress voted 76-41 to begin the political trial. To dismiss Castillo following the impeachment trial, lawmakers will eventually need 87 votes. Castillo or his lawyer must attend Congress on the 28th of March and present their defense before lawmakers will debate and have a final vote on the impeachment. The leftist Castillo has seen his popularity plunge to 26% since taking office in July, according to a recent poll conducted over the weekend. Lawmakers are zeroing in on the testimony of a lobbyist who has alleged to prosecutors that Castillo engaged in irregular acts. The attempt to oust Castillo is promoted mainly by three right-wing parties, including the Popular Force, led by former presidential candidate Keiko Fujimori, who lost last year's elections to Castillo. The opposition alleges that Castillo, who denies the accusations, is morally unfit to govern. A London tribunal has ruled that a 2018 Bermuda law that bans same-sex marriage in the British Overseas Territory is constitutional, a departure from the broad trend towards legalization of gay marriage in the West. Bermuda's top court in 2018 ruled that the 2018 Domestic Partnership Act, which allows same-sex couples to form partnerships but prohibits them from marrying, violates constitutional freedom of conscience. London's Privy Council, the highest court of appeal for British territories, ruled yesterday that the Constitution does not in fact require the state to recognize same-sex marriages in response to an appeal by Bermuda's government. The government of Bermuda, a wealthy socially conservative island in the Atlantic of 60,000 people, argues that domestic partnerships provide the same rights as marriage. Thousands of people support the gay marriage ban. Bermuda's Attorney General did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The Privy Council found that the Domestic Partnership Act does not interfere with freedom of conscience as laid out in Section 8 of Bermuda's Constitution. And finally tonight, international news. Russia's foreign ministry says it has imposed sanctions on U.S. President Joe Biden and 12 other U.S. officials. The list includes Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, Press Secretary Jen Psaki, and other members of the administration. But it also includes two surprises: former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Mr. Biden's son, Hunter. The measures block their entry into Russia and freeze any assets held in the country. However, the ministry has said the sanctions will not impede necessary high-level contacts for the affected individuals. Other names on the list are the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, Deputy National Security Advisor Dalip Singh, and U.S. Agency for International Development Administrator Samantha Power. The Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, Wally Ademo, and the President of the Export-Import Bank of the U.S., Rita Joe Lewis, are also on the list. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Russia has said it is applying sanctions on the basis of reciprocity. Russia is now the most sanctioned country in the world. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting and encouraging you to stay safe.